Welcome to the webinar, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this Lunch and Learn Whirlwind tour of the FME platform. So my name is Dara Broderick. I'm a technical support specialist on the FME Desktop team here at Safe Software. And I'm joined today by
Kezia Yu, and I'm also a technical support specialist, but for the FME Server side.
Thanks, Kezia.
Awesome. Okay, so before we dive in, I'll just give a quick introduction to our webinar platform if you are brand new to the platform. And at this point, it's a good time for us to turn off our webcams just to save on some bandwidth for the demos later on. So if you do have any audio issues during the webinar, we do have that handy help button on the bottom left. Click that for 4 simple troubleshooting steps, and then share your reactions with us during the webinar. So on the bottom, you'll see that react button and different emojis you can pick from. We love to see them. And then we also have the questions tab. So drop any questions you have during the webinar, and you can also upvote other people's questions. And the chat. Keep letting us know where you're tuning in from. You're all using it now already, and share your comments with us there. And if you would like to download the slide deck and follow along, you can click that button on the top right of the slides to download. And we'll also be sending these out in the follow-up email, so no worries if you don't want to do that at this moment.
Great, thanks, Elizabeth. So for today's agenda, we're going to take you on a whirlwind tour of the FME platform. And our tour begins in FME Desktop, where we'll take a look at 2 demos to give you a brief overview of how FME Desktop works and what to expect when using FME Desktop. Then I'll pass it over to Kezia, who will continue our tour into the world of FME Server, where she will demonstrate how to create a self-serve app, automations, and streams. Today's webinar is a lunch and learn style webinar. So disclaimer, this will be most beneficial to folks that are new to the FME platform and that are hoping to get a better understanding of what FME is capable of. We've a link to a voucher for your lunch, which is on us today. And we'll be taking questions throughout the webinar. So be sure to add them to the questions panel and we'll do our best to answer them live. And Elizabeth just dropped the link in the chat for the lunch voucher. So first things first, we have a poll to see how familiar you folks are with FME. So if you jump over to the poll tab, you can vote in there.
Yeah,
so
just
give everyone a minute or two.
Yeah. And I'll just keep an eye on it here. It looks like we have quite a few votes already. And once you've voted, you can also see the poll results too, which is cool.
Great. It looks like we've got a lot of new people here. So you've recently discovered FME and you're interested to learn more about it. So that's great. We also have some more experienced folks here also, 1 to 3 years of experience. And we've got a few veterans, I think, as well of FME. So hopefully you've picked something up today and you'll find the webinar useful. Okay. So we all know that the value of data in today's world, and we're guessing that's why you're here today. You have data in different locations, different formats, and you'd like to make the most of that data. So being able to integrate data from multiple sources increases the value of that data and improves the decision-making process within an organization. Allowing employees to be well-informed on decisions they make increases confidence in the process and will in turn benefit the wider company in the long term. And that is where the FME Enterprise Integration Platform can help. With this platform, you'll know that you have the best support for spatial data in the industry. So what is included in the platform? Well, first we have FME Desktop, where you can build and run workspaces locally. FME Desktop then ties into FME Server, where you can publish and run the workspaces that you've created in FME Desktop. Here you can automate the workflows and create self-serve apps as an example. The last two pieces of the platform are FME Cloud, which is FME Server hosted by Safe Software. And we also have FME Mobile, which can be used to trigger workflows in the field, along with the use of AR capabilities. For today's webinar, we'll be focusing solely on FME Desktop and FME Server. What does data integration look like and how can it help? So businesses are full of data and it's often spread out in different departments, locations, and formats, meaning people may not even know of its existence. Data integration seeks to combine these data sources into a single location, which is often referred to as a data warehouse. Data integration can help utilize all the data that is encapsulated within a company, break down data silos in favor of cross-functionality, and create accessibility within your organization. But as we all know, data can be messy, unorganized, full of errors, or in formats that don't work particularly well together. There are often high volumes of data, and tackling these data silos and streamlining business processes is not an easy task. What could businesses achieve if they had access to all the data available in their organization? Organizations would be able to make better business decisions if they had access to readily available high-quality data. And that really highlights one of our strengths here at Safe Software is maximizing the value of your data, but also bringing the power of spatial data to the decision-making process. For those of you that are newcomers to the webinar, here's a little bit more about who we are. Safe Software, we're a leader in enterprise spatial data integration, and our mission is to help maximize the value of your data. We've been solving data challenges in the industry for over 25 years. Today, our enterprise integration platform, FME, enables over 10,000 organizations worldwide to solve their data challenges. And in the industries include energy, AEC, transportation, local and federal governments, utilities, and telecommunications. The FME platform is being used in 128 countries around the world and is supported by our fantastic global partner network. So you can be sure wherever you're based, you will be supported. We also have a brilliant FME community online with over 16,000 active members who are very generous with sharing their knowledge. This graph highlights where SAFE started and how it has grown over the years. Beginning in the mid-90s, specifically supporting GIS and CAD formats, we've grown to add support for databases, rasters, big data, and we're expanding our capabilities into AI and machine learning. So we're going to kick off the tour by taking a look at FME Desktop. And as I mentioned earlier, FME Desktop is where you build and author your workspaces. And I have a demo here where we're going to be taking a look at how we can improve the data that a group of water meter inspectors will have access to when they're out in the field. So what obstacles could we run into here? So we're joining data that is located in two different locations. It has it's two different formats and different schemas. And how will we achieve this? By using FME to join the data based on a common attribute. And then hopefully the result will be enriched data that can be used by the team in the field. So I'm just going to go jump over to FME Desktop now. Okay, so this is FME Desktop, and this is what you will see when you first open FME Desktop. We're going to get started by creating a blank workspace. When you open up your blank workspace, you'll be greeted by a few different windows. The main one here that we're going to take note of is the canvas. Now, this is your graphical interface of where you'll put readers, writers, and transformers. So first thing every workspace really needs is some data. And that's where we'll use a reader to read some data into the workspace. I can click the reader button here, and I'm going to specify a format. So I know I have a JSON file containing some information about the water meters in the Surrey area. So I can open up and just find that file in my file explorer here. And I'm just going to click OK, and we can add that to the canvas. When we add that to the canvas, you'll see that this kind of orange object appears, and this is the reader. I can click this green button here, and that will begin to run the workspace, run the reader. And by clicking on this green icon here, FME has created a cache of the data, which I can then view in the visual preview down here. So you can see we can there are 1,533 records in this JSON file, and we can see a little bit more information about these water meters. So as I mentioned, we want to enrich this data by adding another data source into our workspace. So I can add another reader this time, and I have access to some lot information which is stored in a Postgres database. And you can see here, I have a connection already set up, but if you didn't have a connection set up to your database, you can add one here. So you can name your connection, you can add in the information like the host, the port, the database that you wish to connect to, and your user credentials. You can then test that connection to ensure that it's working correctly. As I already have one set up, I'm just going to connect to that. I can jump in here and select the table. You can also utilize where clauses in some of the readers, which can improve performance. If you didn't specifically need to read in all the data, you could specify maybe you only wanted a certain section using a where clause. Again, I'm just going to read this data in, and you can see just another feature down here is the translation log. So the translation log will give me a step-by-step process of what FME is doing to read the data in. And if there are any errors, they'll show up in red. You can see we have a few warnings here. That's purely just related to the option that I've enabled called feature caching, which is used to store the data in the workspace. We usually recommend keeping this on while you're authoring the workspaces, but once the workspaces are ready for production, feel free to turn this off to save on memory usage. So let's inspect our data here. We can see that we have information like PID, the owner class here, and we also have a zone code. So the zone code is really what our water inspectors, our water meter inspectors are looking for. They want to be able to tell what kind of residence or lot that they're working with. And if we go back to our first one, we can also see that we have a PID in here. So what we can do is we can join these two data sets together based on this common attribute. We can do this by using a transformer. So I'm just going to add a window here to FME, which will show us how many transformers that we have access to in FME. So you can see we've 538. We often say to people, you're never going to use all 538 transformers. You'll probably come across 20 or 30 that you'll use regularly, depending on the types of workspaces that you're building. In this categorized section, we can see how they're broken out. Like, so we've 3D, we've got coordinates, filters and joins, and that's specifically what we're looking for here. We want to join the data together. So I'm just going to double click on the feature joiner to add it to the canvas. Next, I can connect my two data sources to the left and right ports. So these lines here represent the data streams as it moves throughout the workspace. This red icon here on the feature joiner indicates that there are parameters within the feature joiner that need to be filled in for the workspace to run successfully. So in our case, I want to join the data from the lots onto the data in the water meters data set. So I can use a left join, and I'm going to specify the common attribute between the two, which is the PID. And once I run this, we'll be able to take a look at the now joined data set. So if I scroll across here, I can see that each water meter now has the information about, say, like the owner class and most importantly, the zone code. Now there's different types of join modes and different types of join modes, which we go into more in some of the articles on our knowledge base. So we're not going to specifically be diving into that today, but we'll be sure to check that out if you're curious about the different types of join modes. Okay, so now that I'm happy with the data set that I've created, I could just write this out to, say, an Excel file for our water meter inspectors to use. So I can add a writer to the canvas. I can specify my format, which is Excel, and then just specify where I'd like to write the data out to. I can give it a file name. In this case, I'm just going to call it water meters and save that. Now for the sheet definition, I'm going to choose automatic, which is going to look at the schema that we've created in the workspace, and it'll copy that onto the Excel file. For a sheet name, I'm going to just call this Surrey because this is where the water meters are located. And then I can just connect my stream here and write the data out. Once the workspace has finished, you can see we get a translation was successful message in our translation log. So I can just open the folder up and we can take a quick look at the data and how it looks like in Excel. There we go. We can see the zone codes and any other information that we've added to the water meters. So that was a really quick example of how you could take two different data sets from two different locations, two different formats, and join them together based on a common attribute, and then write the data out to your desired format. If we wanted to take a look at another example, in this case, we're going to just create a blank workspace again. And this time we're going to take a look at how FME handles some CAD data. So I'm going to just go over to my file explorer, jump over to my data, and you can see we have this building outlines DWG. So this is another way that we could just add some data to the canvas. I can just simply drag and drop from my file explorer. You can see that FME has intelligently picked up that we're working with a DWG file, and I can click OK to add this to the canvas. Now in this case, you can see we get this pop-up for selecting feature types. So a feature type basically is a different way of describing, say in a DWG, you might have multiple layers, or in an Excel file, you have different worksheets. These can be split up into feature types in FME. In this case, I just want the outlines layer from this DWG, and I can add that feature type then to the canvas. So this is our reader again, just like we had with the JSON file in the previous example. So I can click OK, and you can see this time, because we have some spatial data and geometry, we get this graphics window. But unfortunately, it looks like our data isn't located in the correct coordinate system. I know that this should be located in Vancouver. So what I can do is I can add a coordinate system setter to the canvas. And by doing this, I can just literally type onto the canvas and choose from the transformers. So coordinate system setter. And I can double click to add that to the canvas. can connect my data stream here, go in and set my parameters, and I'm going to just use this first coordinate system, and we can run this. And now hopefully once we inspect the data again, it is located in the correct coordinate system, just here in the kind of downtown section of Vancouver. So you can see over here in our table view, we don't actually have any information in this CAD file. But if we actually click on, say, a building here, we can see that there is this feature information window in FME. And this is kind of all the information that is stored in the file, but it's not necessarily exposed. So you can see there's tons of information here, like the layer styles, line types, line weights. You can access all of that. Now there's two attributes in here which I specifically would like to use, which is the base height of the building and also an outline ID. So I'm going to expose these attributes by using an attribute exposer. So again, if you're confused about what transformer to use, you can always just start typing on the canvas. Like in this case, I'm specifically looking for an attribute exposer and can add that to the canvas. You can learn more about the transformer here by clicking the Browse Additional Help, which will just bring up the documentation and how you typically use this transformer, how it works, and just a few notes about the parameters as well. So I can add that to the canvas, connect it up, and then just choose the two attributes that I'd like to expose. So I know that they're called outline ID and base height. So now once I run this and inspect the data, we'll be able to see that information in our table. So that's much more useful to someone once we finally write the data out. But I also have a CSV file which contains some more information as well. So again, we're going to look at how we can join these two data sets together. So I have the CSV file. Again, I'm just going to drag it and drop it onto the canvas. And we can read this in. And just like our last example, we have a common attribute between the two, which is the outline ID. And then we also have this mean height attribute, which will give us more information about the buildings. So I'm going to join these two data sets again together and using the feature joiner, connecting the two streams together. We're going to use the left join mode again, and we're going to select the outline ID as the common attribute. Okay, that looks great. So now you can see I have the mean height has been joined onto the geometry. Now, before I write this data out, I can use an attribute manager, which is a really powerful tool. It's kind of like the Swiss Army knife in FME. It has multiple functions, which is really handy. So in here, we can take a look at what the input attributes like, the output attributes. We could set the values. We can rename them. If I wanted to change this outline ID to say building ID, I can do that. And you can see the action will be changed to rename. I can create a new attribute in here. We could say create an attribute called building height. And you can even perform some arithmetic in here as well. So I can say, I would like to subtract the building height, sorry, the mean height, and take away the base height. So this will give me the overall height of the building. And there we go. Now we have a new attribute in here for building height. Okay, so finally, I can write this data set out to, say, a GIS format. We can use a file geodatabase in this case. And I can just select the reader, just like I did with adding the transformers. You can also add readers and writers to the canvas like this. The writer, specify where I'd like to write the data out. So we can just call this buildings. And again, I'm just going to use the automatic feature class or table definition, which will look at the attributes that we've created in here and replicate that in the output data set. It's just going to look for a name for the feature class, so we can call it Vancouver Buildings. And the geometry, we're specifically working with polygons here, so I'm going to select that. There is some other information here about the type of feature operation. So if you were running this workspace continuously, you might need to change this to maybe someone's changed the information or added new buildings. You could choose to update or insert new records. So we've got a few different options in there. Okay, all right. And then we're just going to write this out. So again, hopefully we'll see a translation successful at the end, and we'll have our data set written out. Okay, great. So that kind of covers the two demos for FME Desktop today. I'm just going to jump back over to the presentation. So firstly, we went through the FME Desktop tour where we're looking at non-spatial data. So we learned how to read in two different data sources, join them together, and write out to our desired format. And then in our CAD to GIS example, we looked at how you can work with CAD data, joining spatial and non-spatial data together, and then write that out to our desired GIS format. Okay, so we're just going to take a few minutes here for Q&A. I think we have a few questions already posted in the questions panel.
Yeah,
yeah, sorry, Elizabeth.
It looks like we've gotten to most questions. I'm thinking for the sake of time, maybe while we compile more questions here, we can save our time for the next Q&A segment, if that works for you guys.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Cool. So I'm just going to pass it over to Kezia now.
Awesome. Thank you, Dara, for the FME Desktop demo. I'll take it from here for the FME Server portion. So FME Server is part of the FME Integration Platform. It takes data integration models called workspaces, which you just saw Dara demo from FME Desktop, and deploy them on a web-based system. FME Server provides automation capabilities such as event-driven actions, scheduling, and notifications. FME Server also provides a series of centralized data services to help manage and deliver data. So a quick comparison between FME Desktop and FME Server. FME Desktop is desktop-based and is mostly single user, where you build and author your workflows. This is where you can integrate and transform your data. And once you have a workflow going, you can then bring it to FME Server, where it is web-based. And you can also have the capabilities to take your workspaces to the next level, where you can share your workspaces across different departments, deliver self-serve access, automate your workspaces, and perform application integration. So to highlight a couple of points, you will most likely need FME Desktop if you want to use FME Server, because FME Desktop, once again, is where you author the workspaces, and FME Server will take these workspaces and automate them in different ways. And I'd also like to note that FME Engine is the underlying technology behind both products that run workspaces. So if a workspace runs successfully on desktop, then it should run the exact same way on FME Server. So what is FME Server? Here are some core capabilities. This includes real-time events, reoccurring tasks, data on demand, and data streaming. Going deeper and diving deeper into a little deeper into the real-time events and recurring tasks, I like to highlight where you can build automation workflows to respond to events in near real time. This would be, for example, watching for email updates or webhooks, or even files uploaded to FTP sites or other directories. We can also automate your workflows by setting it on a schedule. So automation, we will demo this later on. It is very easy to build, and it is a visual interface where you can drag and drop things so that it is low to no code and really easy to use and manipulate. As for data on demand, this is where you can build self-serve applications on top of your workflows and allow end users to use and serve themselves with the data that they want. For example, you can create an app for users to upload their own data to the workflow and have it process and validate their data and have it returned to them. Or you can have another app where users can select the data that they want when they want it. So this eliminates the need for data analysts or others to carry out manual data distribution tasks. Finally, data streaming or data streams. This is where we can react to real-time events and sensor data. This is mostly for large volume of continuous data, and it carries out immediate updates and delivers instant notifications. I'll show you how you can build that out later on as well. So going into the demo, this demo's goal is to introduce you to FME Server and how you can automate your workspaces in different ways. The obstacle that you may have if you don't have FME Server is that it can be costly or timely to build out these automated processes. And so perhaps FME Server could be the right fit for you, where it is a low to no code workflow, and it is really easy and efficient to automate your workflows. So jumping into the demo, I will share my screen now. I'm going to start off with the FME Server tour. This is the FME Server web user interface. The first thing you need to do is log in with your credentials. Once again, it is web-based, so it is in a web browser. So I'm just going to log in with my credentials. And here you will be greeted with the home page where we have different panels with the help resources that point us to quick links for documentation on FME Server, FME Community, demos, server tour, training, and our REST API. We also have other panels on recent jobs, last published workspaces, recent automations that can also be organized and customized to your liking. If you are not on the home page, we have the help resources in the top right corner that will help you jump to these pages if you need. And there's also the user setting where you can tailor your account's email preferences or change passwords and so on. On the left-hand side, we have the menu panel where you have different functionalities of FME Server, such as the automation that I spoke about earlier, streams, server apps, which I like to highlight today. And then if you are admin, there are a couple more functionalities, such as user management, system configuration, and engine management. At the very bottom, you will see the FME Server version and build that you're on, and whether or not it's on Linux or Windows or however it is deployed. And so running a workspace on FME Server is a little bit different than FME Desktop. So the interface, you would select a repository, which can be likened to a project folder. And this helps you organize your workspaces by projects or by departments. So for example, some default workspaces that are published or deployed with FME Server would be from the samples repository, and you can just simply select the workspace Austin Apartments. We have a couple of different services, but I'll get into that shortly. So I'll just select Job Submitter for now, which will simply run the workspace as it runs in FME Workbench. And once you click Run, FME assigns the workspace to an engine, which carries out the translation. So workspace ran in FME Desktop is a translation and produces a translation log, whereas a workspace ran on FME Server is called a job and produces a job log. So I'm just going to click Run, and it's running. So if we go to view details, this will take us to the jobs completed page. And here, instead of the translation log, we have the job log where you can go through what happened in your workflow. And if you have troubleshooting, if you have any issues or errors, you can go into the log for troubleshooting. So every time a job is ran, an engine is assigned to that job. And so that engine is taken up and will be running that workspace. If all engines are taken up, then jobs that will be queued and will show up on this page. So I'm just going to go back into FME Workbench really quickly and show you a workspace and how we can bring it into FME Server. So here I have a workspace that reads in an Excel sheet and writes out to HTML. So this is the reader on the left, the writer on the right, and the blue are the transformers. So this workspace specifically reads in an Excel sheet that looks at job openings by industry and occupation for the province of British Columbia. And this workspace allows the end user to select the year that they're interested in and see which industry has the most or has how many job openings. And it will return an HTML file back to the end user. So to bring this workspace into FME Server and automate it, there are two ways from the workbench. So you can click Publish on the toolbar up here, or you can go to File and Publish to FME Server. So this opens the publishing wizard, and the first thing you need to do is set up your connection to FME Server. This would be similar to the credentials. This would be the credentials that I used to log into FME Server earlier. So I already have that set up. I'll click Next. And to bring this into FME Server, we want to select a repository for this workspace. So once again, this repository is similar to a project folder. You can create new ones here. I can create a new one, Kezia Demo 2, and you can give the repository a description, and it was successfully created. You can also rename your workspace here as well and upload files along with your workspace. So I'm going to click Next. And finally, the last thing we can do is to register services to your workspace. This determines how the translation will run on FME Server. So the data download and data streaming services will output the data differently, the HTML file. For example, if we run the workspace on FME Server with data download service, it will return a downloadable link with the HTML file in a zip file, whereas the data streaming service will return the HTML file stream back to the user in the web browser. I'll choose both just so you can see what that looks like when we go back to FME Server. So you can hit Publish and it'll bring it back to FME Server. And let's go back into the web interface. If I go to the home page, you can see my workspace was just published to FME Server a couple seconds ago. So going back to Run Workspace, let's select the repository that I just uploaded this workspace to and select the data download service to show you how the data will be returned to the end user. So I'm going to select I'm interested in 2024, and let's run that, and we will receive a URL with the download link to the zip file. So if I open that up, here is the HTML file that was downloaded onto my own machine with the different industries and openings for 2024 and the labor market for British Columbia. So if I go back and use the data streaming service, then this HTML file will be streamed back to the end user, in the web browser. And here we are. So how we can take this workspace to the next level is to build a server app, which is an app that you can share with people outside of FME Server who don't necessarily have the login credentials to FME Server. So I can go to Build Workspace App page, give it a name, Give it a title, job openings in BC. And then I'll ask the end user to select a year of interest. And then selecting the repository again and the workspace, as well as the data streaming service, because I want it to stream back to the end user. I can also set expiration, require authentication, and allow users to upload. I don't want that necessarily for this workspace, so I'll disable that. As for the parameters that were published with this workspace, I only want the user to be able to choose the year that they're interested in, so I won't let them have the ability to upload a source file or set the destination because it will be of the HTML file because it will be streamed back to them in the web browser. I can also customize server apps and have it show different colors and different images as well, but I'll just keep it simple for today's demo and click OK. And here is the link that can be shared for others to use. I can just open that in the next tab. And this is what a self-serve app looks like. And as a user, I can choose years of interest between 2021 and 2029, which was set in and authored in FME Workbench. So I'll just choose 2025 and see what that looks like. And here is the HTML page streamed back to me in the web browser. Another way to take your workspace to the next level is to build automations. So going to the automations page, we can build automations. We can close this splash screen. So this is kind of somewhat similar to FME Desktop. Instead of readers, transformers, and writers, we have triggers in the green, actions in the orange, and external actions in the blue. So triggers are events that trigger an automation or kick off an automation. We have quite a number of trigger events. This includes updated emails received or Dropbox directory updated. We have some Amazon S3 buckets updated and webhook trigger. I'm going to stick with a simple one, the FME Server schedule initiated. This is where I can automate this workflow to run on a schedule. I'll select repeat on interval, and perhaps I'd like this automation to run every day or by the hour or by the minute. I can select 1 minute for it to start immediately and click apply. The next thing is you want to drag the success port from this trigger to the action. Actions, the most common one would be running a workspace. So I can select run a workspace. Other actions include logging messages and filtering them. And I can go back, for example, if I want to automate my workspace to run, I can select the repository and the workspace of my liking, and then have that set to run for the year 2023 indefinitely, and then that will run by the minute. And then lastly, we have external actions in the blue. This is where these are actions outside of FME Server. So these actions include uploading output data to Amazon S3, sending out messages, sending out emails, and uploading to different directories. So the most common, the one that I use a lot would be sending out an email. For example, if I want an email received every time this automation is ran, we can do that. So if you select the email action, we have a couple templates for different emails. For example, Gmail, it will autofill some of the parameters already for you. And then you will have to fill in the email to, email from, and the subject, as well as if you want to add an attachment, and you can fill out the email body. So I have an automation set up already, so I'll just jump to the Manage Automations page. And I will enable this Schedule Automations demo. Start. And if I jump into it, here is the same thing that I was demoing earlier. And if we go into the email, I already have everything set up and pointing to an email, FME Server demo. And in the email body, I added some quick text along with a job log attachment. So we can go to the automations log from menu, view log file, and we can check if the email or the automation has been sent and submitted. and if the email has been sent successfully. So it looks like from the log that the email was sent successfully. So I'll just show you really quickly what that looks like. So going to this email, this Gmail, I'm going to refresh it, and you should see that the email that was sent from the automation is right here. And here is the job log along with some of the information that I set in the email body. Finally, I'd also like to talk about streams really quickly. Streams is for large volume of data that is ran continuously and will take up an engine forever. So if you only have one engine, this might not be the workflow for you. But if you have multiple engines and you can spare one to run this one workspace that you need, then this could work for you. So a lot of streaming data comes from Internet of Things, such as sensor data with large volumes of messages, such as temperature, GPS locations, fleet management. We have a lot of IoT connector transformers to support different services for data streaming, such as Azure, Amazon, Google, JMS, and some other options. So Workspace is running forever as long as we want to pull in data and process it using the streams. So once published, we can use Streams interface to configure the workspace, which an engine will take up. And so I already have one set up. We can go to the Manage Streams page, the fleet tracking. And once you set the workspace and the repository that it's in, it will start the stream. Right now it is stopped. And the specific workspace that I'm using is using a Kafka connector and is managing and is looking at fleet data. What you need to do is assign an engine to this stream. So you can go to Manage, and then you can assign different engines if you have one that you can spare. And then at that point, you can click Start. And if you go to your jobs page running, you will see that that workspace is running, and it will be on this page as long as your stream is started and running. So that's just a little bit about FME Server that I wanted to showcase today. I'm going to jump back into the slides and save some time hopefully for a Q&A. So to recap, I did a quick tour of FME Server. We looked at how we can build server apps, automation, and stream. And we can now, yes? We can now get started with if we have time for Q&A.
Awesome. I think at this point we can turn back on our webcams and take a look at the panel. Some awesome questions that came in today. Thanks, everyone. Are there any that we might want to get started with?
We just have one. Martin asked, do I need FME Desktop to create jobs on FME Server? So to answer that, yes, you need FME Desktop to create the workspaces, which you then publish to FME Server, where you can then create your automations or server apps.
I'm just looking at a question from Jen Hu, which is setting up email notifications on FME Server. And you can do so. Let me just open FME Server back up. So I can send out some resources on how you can set that up. But if I share my screen really quickly. So to set up emails to be sent out every time you run a workspace, you would need to create some topics and also use these subscriptions for, let's see, where is it? Oh, I think it should be, yeah, either it would be data download, email job failure. There are a couple subscriptions and topics you will need to set up, but I can send you some resources on that as well. It is a little confusing, but you don't need topic monitoring for that part. And it also is not the system email that you set. This one is different. The system email is used to send out email for perhaps when a user changes password or if anything happens on FME server administratively.
We have another FME server question, Kezia. Can FME server kick off a workbench via directory watch? That's a great question.
Yes, absolutely. I guess I could share my screen again. Sorry about that. Should keep it open. Here you go. And then in automations, we have many different triggers that you can use to trigger your automation. So some directory would be the resource or network directory updated. This one can check and watch for create, modify, and deleted. And this would be if there's a new file uploaded, if a file was deleted or modified, and you can select ones that you need and don't need. And there are other directories as well. I think there's the Dropbox directory and FTP directory and many other ones. Any more server questions?
Just taking a look here. We did have one about scheduling an FME workspace to run without FME server. So like technically you can do this, but you do miss out on all the other benefits of having FME server, like the triggers, or if the workspace fails, you can receive a message on why that's after happening. With the task scheduler, you won't get that.
Yeah. So if you don't have FME server and you want to schedule it, I think it would be on task manager or task scheduler.
Task scheduler,
that can be pretty hard to troubleshoot, whereas in automations you have logs that you can look at, and also you can chain workspaces to run after another. Or even in parallel, depending if you have two engines available. So you can do a lot more with scheduling via automations as well.
We just have a question on training as well. So training that is provided by Safe Software is free to register. But if you're specifically looking for training for your team, or we'd recommend maybe getting in contact with a partner that could provide server training. And we can drop a link to our partner locator form or locator page. So you could try and find a partner maybe in your region. So hopefully that answers that question.
All right. Any others we want to address before we move on here, team?
Just taking a look here.
Looks like most of them are answered.
Yeah. We do have one on firing off an Excel macro on completion of an export of a spreadsheet. I'm not 100% sure, but you can utilize a template file in your Excel writer, which can contain macros So I'm pretty sure, but I may need to follow up with you on that question.
Awesome. Okay, and if you do have any questions after the webinar as well, before we move on here, I'll just note that you can definitely reach out to us, info@safe.com, and we're happy to chat more after.
So just some summary points on today's demos. FME, once again, is the data integration solution with the best support for spatial data worldwide. With FME Desktop, it allows you to author workflows, to integrate, transform, and validate your non-spatial and spatial data. And FME Server allows you to automate your workflows by building automations, self-serve data portals, schedules, and streams. So we hope today some of our demos were helpful and useful for you to help inspire you on how you can work with your data and automate some of your processes, and ultimately saving you time and resource to focus on other meaningful tasks. Some next steps, you feel free to contact us about anything with your data or questions at info@safe.com. We have free trial for both FME Desktop and FME Server that is available. So you can download FME 2022.1 and also webinars and workspaces to try out our platform. And finally, you can build out your own workflows to manage your own data challenges. Here are some quick resources as well. And after this webinar, I believe you can access the slides and get the links to FME Academy, which is free guided training. We have FME Accelerator, which are free online workshops, and FME Community, where you can connect with different safe FME users, and FME Community is free as well.
Awesome. And speaking of the community, as a thank you for joining us today, if you do take part in the community or begin to today, we do have a code that you can redeem towards points in the community. And here's today's code. I'll drop that in the chat. As Kezia just mentioned, we have lots of great upcoming and on-demand webinars, safe.com/webinars that you can check out. And if you do have a moment to fill out our survey here this morning, I will drop that link in the chat here once again. We love any feedback that we can receive. It helps us continually improve the program. And also try FME for free. I'll drop the link there. And once again, info@safe.com if you do have any other things that you would like to chat with us about. All right, so huge thank you to our presenters here today and for all of our lovely audience and all the questions you had. If you do think of any other questions, we'll remain on the back end for a couple minutes here. Feel free to drop those in and we'll get to as many as we can. And if not, of course, you can reach out to us after. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye for now.